Greetings. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Heart and Soul Broadcasting Services. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today I'm in conversation with Larry Benjamin Norton, a wildlife and landscape painter. If you enjoy this conversation, remember to subscribe, to like, and share. Let's get down to some work.
Broke my heart to see our greatest resources being destroyed and being looted. If we don't stop these things right now, that will be the fate of Victoria Falls. In 2000, we all know what happened. The land invasion started.
Larry Benjamin Norton, welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Trevor, it is such an honor to be here and lovely to see you again.
When you said yes, after such a long time of me pursuing you, I was so excited. Then you said you were traveling.
Yeah.
I think we started talking around about October, November
That's
last year. So
Yeah.
I'm delighted that you've created the time to be here.
Yeah.
Larry, we're having this conversation when one of our colleagues, Blessed Mhlanga, has been in prison now for 57 days, I think today, 57 days. It pains my heart.
Yeah.
There's never a moment when I don't think of Blessed, and I visited him a couple of times in prison. Why I mention this is that you made a gesture around about 2000 or 2001. Clive Murphy, Clive Wilson, Sarah Thompson, and myself had gotten into trouble with Robert Mugabe.
Yeah.
Mark Chavunduka was abducted and tortured.
Yes.
And during that period of pain, anguish, and uncertainty, you came up with these 4 beautiful paintings.
Yeah.
And you said, guys, for the work that you're doing for the nation, thank you. And one of those, that painting for me still hangs, pride of place, in my home. Well, what makes you, what made you do that?
Trevor, I also sent to Jeffrey Nyarota here. And, I love this country.
The late Jeffrey Nyarota, yeah.
And bless him. But I've loved this country. I've always loved it. I was born in 1963. My parents farmed in what is now Mvurwi. And I was taught through them an absolute love of this land. And I've been patriotic through all these years. And it has been agony for me to see what we have endured.
You love this land. You are a patriotic Zimbabwean, and you are doing such great work in terms of capturing amazing moments, and we'll get to discuss and show the viewers out there the 12 paintings. You are in the process of painting 12 beautiful paintings. You've just done 5, so there's still more to come. So we're going to talk about those.
Yeah.
I love and as I think as I talk, they're going to show the viewers out there the long sands of Gonarejo. It's stunning. The Place of Angels, Victoria Falls.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. In the Valley of Memories, lovely. The Kariba Days, beautiful. The Kariba Days has become one of those that I used internationally, I think, to show how beautiful Kariba is. So we're going to go to your work as a painter, wildlife and landscape painter. But before we do that, you've already shared with us your love for this country. And you're currently engaged in a noble campaign to stop the increasing expansion of commercial enterprises in Victoria Falls. Yeah. Can you just unpack to us, one, why you're doing this, and secondly, what it all entails?
Trevor, I'm now 62, and I've lived through some tumultuous years in this country. But on our farm, my father, he bought it in 1958. And at that time, the government, the Rhodesian government, was allowing open-cast chrome mining on the dike. And he put together a case, he fought it and he won, and he prevented it. Anyway, it carries on today, and those are other stories. But I watched an incredible farm disintegrate. I went back not so long ago, and there are huge scars where the Chinese have been able to mine up in the Great Dyke on the farm. A few years ago, I started to see what was happening in the falls. And I saw what was happening in the country. And it broke my heart to see our greatest resources being destroyed and being looted. And I decided there and then that I would fight for this. In Victoria Falls in about 2012 with an amazing woman, Yvonne Jandals, we had formed Friends of Vic Falls, and we had tried to say at that time, we need to have a master plan here and we need to pay attention, or this place is going to get overrun. You know,
it's a delicate place.
It's a delicate place. And Nathan Shamurarira, in 1987, quoted in the Herald, said Victoria Falls will not become Niagara Falls. And Niagara Falls has been commercialized to such an extent there are hotels leaning over the edge of it. And if we don't stop these things right now, that will be the fate of Victoria Falls. And the short answer to that is people can go anywhere in the world. Once Vic Falls loses its incredible natural beauty and wonder, it's gone. And the whole city that is now there will not have the attraction that it had before.
There's already a warning, Larry. In 2022, UNESCO warned that Victoria Falls risked losing its heritage status.
Yeah.
Due to development of infrastructure in restricted zones.
Yes.
That's a warning that we need to take seriously. Are we taking that warning seriously?
I mean, Trevor, it's a long story, but we launched a court case, myself and 9 other local applicants from all walks of life. And we cited Emma.
What year was this?
This was 2022. So it's over 3 years now. We've fought this. We heard that this restaurant, Baines Restaurant, was going to be built. We launched an urgent application to stop the building. There were commercial activities by Daj Success that were going to go onto Cataract Island. And we appealed to have this halted. Anyway, the case should have been heard in 3 days. 3 years later, we still do not have resolution. It has been one of the toughest.
The court has had the evidence from both sides?
Yes, the initial hearings, it's been diverted on technicalities, on inexplicable, and I say this without prejudice, this is before the court still right now. But it has been one of the most frustrating things I've ever had to do, and one of the hardest battles. So it should have been heard in 3 days. These guys went ahead, they built the restaurant against the judge's caution. We have been blocked and frustrated at every turn. And, I must just pay a tribute here. Your newspaper, The Independent, your news editor is a man called Tinashe Karizir.
Yes.
Yeah. Tinashe is the most incredible man. And he has reported on all the machinations in the falls through corruption in council, through all the stuff that has gone on, which is just beyond belief. The facts are there, and there's never any result.
As I was reading the documents that you sent me and doing my own research, the Baines restaurant and the Cataract Island are all in a red zone, meaning they shouldn't be allowed to be doing business there. Am I right?
So they are. Other developments have occurred in the red zone, but we oppose this.
Which shouldn't be okay.
No, the ministers have dropped the ball. The government has dropped the ball. And this emphasis on commercialization at all costs is going to cost all of us. I fight for this for all our children, that this place can be preserved. It belongs to every Zimbabwean, from Mvurwi to Beitbridge. It belongs to every citizen of the world. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world. It's a World Heritage Site. And how this can be allowed, it was protected all through Mugabe's era. And suddenly you go along Zambezi Drive, which extends upriver immediately from the falls to the big tree. And there are all these things going on. It's inexplicable.
It's almost, not almost, it's a mirror of what's happening in this country.
Yes.
Where resources, national resources are being pillaged.
Yes.
The government is looking the other side. But I suspect the people that own the Baines restaurant and the cataract must be connected to those that are in power. Because how else do you explain the authorities looking the other side when the damage to the environment and to such a legacy are being perpetrated?
Trevor, it's inexplicable. And I've written 5 open letters. The last one I sent directly to the Minister of Environment and the Minister of Tourism to try and draw their attention and to try to get them to take action. In those letters, I've said there are people in high places that are allowing this.
It's clear.
It's absolutely. I say this as my opinion, but to me it is absolutely clear. And you know, if you go into Vic Falls, you read some of those articles that Tinashe has written that cover all aspects of life in Vic Falls. It's like the golden egg, and now it's getting raided, and it's been seen as such an opportunity.
You know, it reminded me as I was preparing for this conversation to get this book written by Michelle Arong on Kenya.
Yeah,
it's our turn to eat. I get the sense that the Mnangagwa regime and all those that are around him have decided it's our turn to eat. And it doesn't matter how important what they're eating is for generations to come. They will eat. They do not care.
Yeah. And we've seen this in so many spheres of life, but it is happening at our most valuable asset in this country. And we have to make this stop. And I've tried in the courts. I've been frustrated for 3 years on it. They went ahead and built the restaurant. They're operating. There were petitions. The first one against Cataract Islands. Over 17,000 people said, please don't go onto Cataract Island.
The president has been to eat at this restaurant.
There was a luncheon that Baines put on their social media with the president's wife was at a luncheon. And I wasn't there. I don't know more about it, except that they put it on their social media. It has, as far as I know, never been officially opened by a minister because there are obviously cases against it. But it should have been stopped. And why do I, as a citizen, and I have, this has taken probably 50% of my time for 3 years. It's had huge impact on my family. There have been threats. The people in the case have faced coercion. I won't go into detail of that right now. I don't think I need to, but we all know the pattern of events here. And this has to come to light. And I was visited the other day by the president's office, and they came to talk to me. They were very polite. They were, we spoke openly. I spoke directly. And
what do they want?
They wanted to hear why I was opposing this. And I gave them all the reasons. I said, I am fighting this for your children and for my children. And if we don't stop this, because this is the thin edge of a wedge, and if it doesn't stop now, they will take the whole thing. And these developments always start with a small, low-impact building. And then they grow, and they grow, and they grow, and then it's done. And once you lose wilderness, You cannot get it back. It's gone forever. Once you lose that magic.
Are you hopeful?
Yes, I have faith.
Your faith.
You know, Trevor, I've had support. I just want to list some guys here. But you know, first of all, I want to thank my wife, Laura, and my kids, because when you go into a long, hard battle, and you know this better than anyone, when you undertake something like this, they pay the price.
And the family stood with you.
They suffer your absence, they suffer your anger, they suffer your pain. And yeah, you know, my family. I
can see you're being emotional, but let's
I don't
honor
mean
those.
To be, yeah. So I've got to thank them. I've got to thank Tinashe for his courage and integrity and skill. I've got to thank my legal team, Ryan Stewart, my advocate, Fadzai Mahere, Bruno Delay, Galvin Yarsfeld, the other applicants, Africa Jubani, Dave Glynn, Bishop Dube, Trimor Ndolo, Effias Mambumwe, Travolta Chachoka, Joe Craig. These are the guys who stood up. David Coulthard has been amazing. My good friend Paul Connolly has been incredible. I've had so many, you know, and I can't even mention them all here. The Independent has done an amazing job. The Standard has done an amazing job. There's a guy, Dr. Ian Games, who Zim Parks contracted to redo the mapping. A man of unbelievable integrity. And he has brought sanity, not just to this argument, but to the whole master plan for Vic Falls, which we were talking about back in 2012. I have a core team at my studio. My assistant, Mal Hudson, and I have my guys who do various jobs. Stanley Chizinga, Bishop Dube, Sibongile Sibanda. You know, and it's amazing. But from that core team, we have fought this together. We've prayed, we've analyzed, and the best, most profound answers I've had to impossible arguments have come from these guys.
You're doing this for all of us as Zimbabweans.
Yeah.
You're doing this for all of us as humanity, the preservation of the Victoria Falls. Well, what message would you have for Zimbabweans who are watching you right now, who might not be aware of what you've been going through, who might not be aware of the pressure that you are under, who might want to support you? What message would you have for them?
You know, this is, I don't want to take credit for it. This is a fight that many people have fought. And you know, all these guys have played amazing roles, but many ordinary Zimbabweans have helped in this fight, but in so many other fights. You know, I wish that we could pay credit to the lives of the Zimbabweans in this country, the unknown Zimbabweans in this country. You know, in some of these elections, and I've been in a number of them, we lost hundreds of people, homes burnt, people tortured, unbelievable violence. And there needs to be a memorial somewhere in this country that testifies to the sacrifices of unknown Zimbabweans, teachers in rural areas, people who've stood up against unbelievable tyranny. And my fight, you know, I'm quite well known. I'm not as vulnerable as so many other people.
International stature.
Yeah, you know, and there's some things in my favor. But the story of this country is the story of unknown people giving their absolute lives and disappearing into obscurity.
Larry, what you're doing is inspirational. What you're doing must be celebrated. And I pray that your hope and faith sees some fruit out of this struggle that you're engaged in. Noble fight. We're going to take a break here,
Okay.
Larry. When we come back, viewers at home, don't go away. When we come back, we're going to go to a happy place.
Okay.
Where you were born in Vuri,
Yeah.
and how you started painting and how you turned professional at the age of 25 years. And you've now been celebrated throughout the world. You've just come back from an international tour and that kind of stuff. So we're going to go to that place. So at home, don't go away. Join us as we unpack Larry's career as a landscape and wildlife painter. See you on the other side.
I thought, no, there's hope here, and there's reconciliation. Suffice to say, soon after that, the Gukrahundi happened, and I lost faith.
Welcome back to our conversation with Larry Benjamin Norton, a wildlife and landscape painter. Larry Benjamin, what's the significance of Benjamin in your name?
Benjamin is my father's name, my late father, and it's the name of my son. Yeah. So
Was your father a painter?
no, but my grandmother was, my maternal grandmother.
So
my dad was a farmer. My dad was just the best dad, and very tough.
You were born in Vuri.
Yes. Yeah.
Talk to me about your
So
your
I grew
growing
up in what was then Mvukwi's. So I was born in 1963. So we grew up in that era all through the war years. And if you remember, that's really where the war launched. And in 1972, there was the attack on Altina Farm. And Anne de Borgrave was a girl in my class at Mvukwi's junior school. And she got an RPG across the stomach and was away from school for a couple of years. So at our school, which was all white in those days, we had kids from Centenary, Mount Darwin, Motoko, hot areas. So, yeah, the war was all around us. So that's where we grew up.
You started painting as a boy. Talk to us through what was the inspiration? What got you painting?
It's a funny thing. It's hard to understand, but I did it instinctively, probably from 2 years old, as soon as I could hold a pen or a pencil. And my grandmother was a painter. And early on, she said, this boy is going to be a painter. And my dad said, no, he's going to be a farmer. And which I thought as well. But my gran kept all my drawings in a suitcase from a very early age. And I drew so much that my mum had to go to the Herald newspaper and get a whole roll of newsprint paper. So I could just draw and draw and draw. But yeah, by the time I was 6, I could draw anything. At the age of 10, my grandmother gave me a set of oil paints. And I painted, but I played a lot of sport. And I went to Prince Edward School, and it was all rugby and water polo, and I loved that place. And
so would you say your grandmother was the biggest influence when it comes to painting?
She was, yes, she was instrumental, I think, in at least getting me to paint with oils at an early age.
You also had another influence, Simon Combs.
Yeah.
How important was Simon Combs? You worked with Simon Combs for a while.
Simon was my good friend and mentor.
Is he still alive?
No, he was killed by a buffalo, tragically. And Simon, so I don't know if we'll have time to cover the whole story, but flicking across to, I had then gone to agricultural college, come back and started farming with my dad. And then said to him at a point in time, Dad, I'm not going to farm, I'm going to paint. He was dipping cattle at the time. It was like telling him I was going to become a ballerina.
How did he respond?
He was amazing.
How did he respond?
He was wonderful. And he said, okay, he said, I can't put you through another degree, because I'd done an agricultural degree in Australia. I said, I know you can't afford that. I don't want that. He said, okay, take my Land Rover and your dog, go down to the Lowveld, paint and see if it's what you want. And I loaded up and I went down through the Eastern Highlands, down to Buffalo Range. And I went and stayed with our good friends, the Styles, and did some painting in Gonorrhea. And then I got a call from my good friend, Paul Connolly, he's quite a few years older than me, and he'd met me and my parents, and they were looking for rafting guides up at the falls. This was the third year of commercial rafting. And I thought, well, this is what I need before I go over and try and find my way. So I went and worked as a rafting guide at the falls for a season. Long story, smashed a kneecap, completed an exhibition, had my first show in that time at Barber's. And then at that time, I knew that the next step was to find a mentor, someone I could work under. And I went to visit David Shepherd, came out to this country, and I wrote to him and I met him, and he said, no, I'm sorry, I can't help. But I'd seen this book, and it was out of Africa.
Why couldn't he help? Why couldn't David Shepherd help you? Were you that bad or that good?
No, he didn't know me from Adam. He was giving a talk in Kariba, and I rocked up in the crowd. You can't accommodate everyone. Yeah. So I understood that. But I was given this book by Karen Blixen out of Africa. It's a classic. But it was illustrated with the paintings of David Shepherd and this guy, Simon Coombs, whose work I'd never seen or heard of. And inexplicably, I sold a painting to someone who knew someone, put me in touch. When I went to England, they said, Simon lives up the road. We'll introduce you. He was my mentor for 6 months. I rented a little cottage and was looked after by my special friends, the Slatter family, Mike and Glo. Once a week, I'd take my paintings, walk up the hill. Simon would look at the work, tear it to pieces. I'd go back and paint. So that was my education. And then from there, I went on to America.
Tell me, your divorce with farming. Why did you decide I don't want to farm? Dad is farming. You've seen Dad farming. That's an interesting point.
I wasn't trying to avoid this, but I thought, okay, I'm going to tell you the story. So, how's this? I came back. I'd done my degree 4 years in Australia. I loved it. I played a lot of rugby and stuff. Came back, started farming, and I'd always been a responsible son. And now, I knew my folks were getting on, I must take over. I got back. I was a bit restless about it, but I knew this was the road ahead for me. I came into town for a rugby injury. I saw the dentist, had happy gas. When I came round, I couldn't stand up. I had to phone my mum and say, can you fetch me? I was man down for 5 months. All the tests for brucellosis, everything, nothing showed a result. And eventually there was an old pediatrician, family doctor in town called Dr. Baldershan, very wise guy. And he said to me, Larry, I've seen your work. And he was trying to figure out what was wrong with me. He said, you might have to consider something. You might have to consider painting instead of farming. Wow. And at that point I knew, and I was almost depressed, because I thought, this is actually what I'm made to do, but this is the direction I'm going in. And it was psychosomatic. I can only say, my soul and my body put me down. I went up to the falls, still a bit weak after doing the painting in Gonorrhea, to start work with Paul. And I got onto the Zambezi, and I can remember the spot. The first job he gave me, he said, you're going with a kayaking crew up to Toa Island. You come down for 3 days. You're under Rocca, and we set off. I had this oppressive heaviness and weakness. We got to a point in the river, and this thing lifted. It sounds dramatic, but it was a moment. And I was, from that time, 100%, and I went on from there. So that's how it happened.
Wow.
I don't know how.
Wow. And you've gone and done amazing things. You've built a studio in 2008 when you came back from Cape Town. You went to Cape Town briefly. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I then from England, I'd gone on to America, and it's a long story, but I managed to get into the King Gallery in New York, and I was with them for many years, and then later with Burlington Paintings in London. But I built my studio on the farm, and then my first home on the farm, and then the kids grew up on the farm. But in 2000, we all know what happened. The land invasion started, and my ex-wife and I, at that time, we had just lost a little boy to cancer. So it had been very disrupted, but we came back to the farm and now face these land invasions. Yeah, and it was hell. And it was 2 years of that. And
I see.
Sarah and I had built a home. Anyway, it all got taken out. You know, I was so hurt and angry, and we can't go into the complicated. Yeah, it was better just not to be here. I mean, I'd get to a roadblock and I would just tremble with rage at the whole story. And so it was an exile, really. And we had then gone to Paarl in South Africa and started, we were really at rock bottom and had to borrow a fortune and slowly put our lives back together, buy and sell properties. I painted, I had exhibitions. But my soul was never there. My soul has always been here, and
so 6 years later.
Yeah, so I did 5 years, and then in 2008, when things were at the absolute most dire, I came back to Vic Falls.
I must take you to somewhere, this place which is very uncomfortable, which I think represents quite a number of white compatriots.
Yeah.
You get to a roadblock and you get angry.
Yeah.
Because of what's happened to you.
Yeah.
I get a sense that there's a lot of that within the white community. Do you get a sense that's the case? There's anger justifiably because of what has happened. Do you get a sense it's
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure. And I mean but it was in our face, Trevor. Sure. Every day. We were having guys surrounded with there were punguis, there were jambanjas. There was bad stuff going down, and I'm not saying there hasn't been bad. We've lived through bad stuff.
Are you recovered from that? Are you recovered from that?
I'm not sure. And my wife Lara has been amazing in trying to help me to, figure the stuff out.
Let's go.
But I want to tell you one story.
Yeah.
So, I was at Prince Edward when the war ended. And I finished school in 1981. So it was a big period of transition. Anyway, after that, eventually I went to Australia. And I'd been so impressed by Robert Mugabe's speech of beating swords into plowshares and stuff. And, even with all the changes, and my love for this country was undiminished. And I thought, this is amazing. There's hope here. And I actually did a painting. And I said to my mum, I said, please, can you get this dropped at the president's house? And it was of an elephant bull. And in the background was smoke from the fire, which represented the war that was now finished. And I wrote him a letter and I thanked him. Even though my whole life, my whole early life, this was he was, in my perception, the enemy. My father had been wounded in an ambush, and these things had happened. And I thought, no, there's hope here, and there's reconciliation. Suffice to say, soon after that, the Gukurahundi happened, and I lost faith. Not in the country or the people, but in the current dispensation. And, I've seen that unfold.
We're going to take a break here again, because this is a very sensitive place. And I want to go back to you turning professional and what inspired your turning professional. I want us to explore the work that you've done. I want us to go to the expeditions where you've gone for inspiration.
Yeah.
And the work that you do as a philanthropist, because you are a philanthropist. And I think you are a storyteller through your paintings. And I want us to go to that place. So at home, don't go away. Join us as we explore Larry's work as a painter, as a philanthropist. Larry has been to Mozambique, he's been to Nepal, he's been to Egypt, he's been all over the Zambezi River looking for inspiration. So join us on the other side.
From those experiences and those landscapes, I get inspiration. I come back to the studio. Some will be specific experiences or incidents.
Greetings. My name is Trevor Ncube, host of In Conversation with Trevor, Zimbabwe's most engaging conversational show. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. We've brought before your screens change makers from arts, business, and politics, and from the region. Please join our growing community of viewers. Subscribe, like, and share. Welcome back to our conversation with Larry Norton, a wildlife and landscape painter. Larry, so you turn professional at 25. What was the motivation? What was the inspiration? What was the thinking?
It wasn't really a choice.
Right.
After my journey that far, and I just knew this is what I was made to do.
Yeah. And you've built a studio at home, and you've got your main studio in Victoria Falls.
So, that was then. That was on Dawi Farm in Mvurwi.
Yeah.
That all ended 2002.
Okay.
Lost all of that. Went to South Africa, came to Vic Falls. Then I started a gallery at the Vic Falls Hotel in about 20.
Beautiful space. I've visited.
Amazing.
Love the space.
I really have to thank the Victoria Falls Hotel.
When I go there, I always wish I have a big check and a big wallet with lots of money. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful. What's your creative process, Larry? What's your creative process? What gets you going? Let me work on a piece.
So I come to doing a piece through a few different sort of channels. What I try to do is I try to do a lot of expeditions and field work. And, I kayak a lot. I spend a lot of time on rivers. I hike. So we'll go and walk for seven days across a game reserve or do an expedition. And from those experiences and those landscapes, I get inspiration. I come back to the studio. Some will be specific experiences or incidents. Others, I'll go through my material. So I sketch and I do watercolors and I take photographs. And then sometimes it's from imagination.
And what about the choice of the material you use? Because you use oils, you use watercolor, you use charcoal, you use pencil. What makes you pick on any one of these?
So in art, everything comes down to drawing. If you can't draw, you're not going to be able to paint. So I drew and drew and drew as a child. So drawing is really fundamental to my work. And even when I do a big oil painting, I draw it in great detail, often with pencil. The watercolors are often from field work because you're out in the open. There are mapani flies and tsetse flies, and there's dust and beetles. And so it's more difficult to do. But I still do some oil paintings in the open.
I'm sure you can tell from my asking that I'm so ignorant.
Not at all. No. It's a very good question. And then with pen and ink work, I've done quite a lot of book illustration, and where it's more controlled, and then I'll use pencil or pen and ink.
As we're talking, the one that's really I've already said this when we started is out of the. You're working on this the massive paintings of Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
What got you to start work on this massive painting of Zimbabwe. There are going to be 12 of them, hey?
No, there'll be more.
There'll be more.
So
Talk to me about this
It was
project.
misleading. I just sent you a few.
Yeah.
But many years ago, I was commissioned by the O'Donoghue family to do a series of, 3 big paintings. And that sort of got me thinking. And then one of my clients said, I want you to do one 3 meters long. And I thought, right. And the first one I did was Mana Pools. Then I painted Chimani Mani. And it grew from there. And it's been 16 years I've been on this project. So I'm on painting number, I think, 12.
No, 12, okay.
And each one takes about 6 months. So it's a lifetime project. And to do all the main places in the country, I've still got to do Great Zimbabwe, Inyanga, Mavuradona, and Chisarira. So I've got a few to do. At the moment, I'm working on Matopos and Chinoi Caves.
As we're talking, the team is going to fly these ones, which are absolutely mind-blowing. The long sands of Gonarejo, beautiful. The detail, the color. I mean, you are taken to Gonarejo.
Yeah.
You're taken to Gonarejo and you feel like you are taking a wide view of that beautiful place. And then the other one, the long sands of, the Place of Angels, Victoria Falls. Those are my 2 favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, powerful, so much detail, insects, flies, plants. That's amazing stuff that you do, Larry.
Yeah, they a feat of stamina as much as creativity.
Tell me, 6 months? I can't imagine myself 6 months working on a piece. Walk me through that. I mean, you immerse yourself in this thing. What happens?
The very early mornings, very late nights, brutal hours. I mean, your muscles just, ache. I still do some other.
Do you get lost in the piece? Do you lose yourself?
I mean, they're periods of inspired work. And they're periods of just backbreaking toil. And it oscillates. And it also depends on your frame of mind. Sometimes sometimes painting can be a catharsis when you're battling with stuff. Sometimes it's hard to do because you've got, a lot of things you're fighting with.
Writers do get mental block. Do painters have something like that?
I wish I could afford it. But I put my children through universities overseas. So it's a luxury I can't afford. So
you just have to go on, keep going, yeah.
I mean, I try to break it up. I do a bit of other work. I'll have other pieces on the go.
So you can move from one piece to the other.
Yeah, and in the studio, I'll have a few unfinished pieces.
This is a difficult question, an unfair question to ask him. I mean, in terms of which one is your favorite, because it's like asking you which one of your children is the favorite. As you sit here and looking at the public reaction to what you've done, what piece stands out for you as, I've been overwhelmed by the response?
They all resonate. And they've all got particular memories. That one of Gonarejo, I painted the whole thing in the field.
Love it.
And it was in a heat wave and unbelievable conditions. I mean, we had to rope the painting down because of the wind while I was working on it. But the one probably closest to my heart, understandably, is, and I haven't sent it to you, I will, is the Mvurwi Centenary Road. And it's a view from my area, my Musha, looking across forest estates into Chiweshi. And there's a big gomo called Makuvi, which I first climbed when I was 5 years old. Anyway, in the series, they depict the most important places in the country, the iconic places. But for all of us, there's one iconic place that's not a game reserve or a national monument. It's the place where we grew up. So that's why I painted Mvurwi.
Do you get your clients saying, do this one just for me and I'll pay a premium, and you don't do any copy? Does that happen?
Not really, because, with the most important, I'm not saying mine, but with other art, with the most important paintings, the more a painting is seen, the more valuable it becomes, Mona Lisa or something like that. So I haven't had that happen. Yeah.
AI is threatening all our work.
Yeah.
I can see AI being able to produce paintings and copies of very expensive paintings and so forth. Does that worry you? Are you embracing AI? What's your position on that?
No, it doesn't worry me in the least, because I don't think, you look at the history of art through civilization, and its value is that its source is the human mind and heart. Every painting speaks of something. And AI can copy, but it doesn't have a soul. And as long as you paint from your soul, you're always going to generate something, I think, that AI can't do.
You've received a number of awards. It's pages and pages of awards. Talk to me about the award that means the most to you and why.
I'm trying to think. It's a good question.
Do these awards matter to you?
Any recognition, and any compliment, and some of the most profound ones come from people who might just be casual observers. But I think the one that was most important was when I was some years ago with the Society of Animal Artists. I exhibited with them, and I was awarded their Award of Excellence. It was the Catasis Medal. But I haven't really pursued awards. I've rather pursued the paintings.
The awards have pursued you. You do lots of philanthropy work. Sales of your paintings, of your prints have been donated to raise quite a lot of money. What does this mean to you?
Trevor, it's such a gift to be able to give something where your work can raise money to help someone. It's such a gift. It's a profound gift. Where I've had friends with cancer and things like that, and I've been able to send some prints, and then other friends have turned that into a fundraiser, and then other people have spent way more than whatever those pieces are worth and it's such a gift. When you believe in something, to be able to help with that cause, it's a great thing. But so often the opportunity is a more unspoken one, where you see a situation and you can, I'm not a wealthy man, but I can help someone.
It is a blessing to give than to receive, isn't it? Do you get a lot of young people saying, "Can you mentor me?"
Yeah.
Just like you were mentored by Combs. Supposing there's a young man looking at you right now, young woman who's facing the hurdles and trying to do what you are doing, and saying, "Larry has made it." What advice would you give to them?
First of all, in regard to that, I always try and help if I can. And there's a large number of people I have been able to help, and some that I just couldn't get there. Because I often get requests, can I work under,
can I work under you?
Yeah, or do something, and there's a limit to what I can do. But what I do try and do is I always try and encourage those young artists. And often I'll ask them to send me photographs of their work, and I can just make comments. Because I can't, it becomes...
What would you say are the 2-3 key steps that a young person looking at you?
So the first thing is, I mean, the fundamental step if you want to become an artist is to draw. It sounds like a cop-out, but it's not. If you draw hard for 2 or 3 years, you draw everything from life. You draw and draw and draw. Your painting techniques will come. So number 1 is drawing. Number 2 is don't give up. And number 3, only become an artist if there is absolutely nothing else that your mind and body will permit you to do.
So I took on adult coloring, where you buy those books and you color into that. Do you think I'm on my journey to be an artist?
You know what? You probably, and I'm convinced of this, is that for everyone to allow a creative channel in your life, like you've done there, where your normal working life will be negotiation, discussions, news, politics. It creates a channel that will release other parts of your thinking and your approach. I think it's essential. It's like running.
I enjoy it. It's just that my wrists have become, when you get old,
fanatic.
The wrists. But this is the thing. When I would sit down and do my adult coloring, my books, my crayons, and so forth, I say to people, I've got these amazing dreams, and I feel so relaxed. I get lost in my coloring, and I've been recommending it to quite a lot of people.
But what you can't measure is what effect that has on the other sides of your life. Yeah. And if you didn't do it, they become stale. Like with painting, I kayak with my son and with his friends, with the Teed boys, and getting out of what you normally do and going into another world, and you come back into your world of work with a totally different perspective.
Do you think the message of preserving our environment is getting through?
Yes. In the Falls, the whole narrative in the last 3 or 4 years, from all this effort, by many people, there's a different perception. People talk about the Falls now and they say, it is under threat, it's whereas before it was all under the radar. And in this country, I think through education and stuff, there's definitely an awareness that the problem is we have to move, and all of us have to move
with a sense of agency. I'm going to take you. Thank you so much, Larry. You've been vulnerable. You've been authentic. Do you read books?
Yes, a lot.
Okay, I want us to go to discussing books, because a lot of our viewers out there love books. Like I said, this conversation got me to go into my library and get this book out. This book is a painful book to read about the pillaging of resources in Kenya by the Kenyan regime of what was it? I can't remember what the president was, but they went on a rampage until this guy stood up to try and expose it. And I just get a sense that, the people that own Bain's Restaurant and Cataract, I wish they could get in touch with us. Because here's the thing now. When I studied journalism, you could go into the company's register and find out who owns Bay's Restaurant or the Cataract. You can't do that anymore. You get there, the documents have disappeared and that kind of stuff. I wish these were people with a conscience and realize that the Victoria Falls is a national heritage for all of us, for my children and their children. What they're doing is not right. So it got me reading this book, because the pillaging that is taking place right now, mountains are being dug. farms are being dug because people are looking for diamonds, for gold, and that kind of stuff. So I recommend this book. It's a very important book to read.
Okay.
Around the courage that you've shown in standing up and speaking up is all contained here. And then this book, The Gangster State. Okay. The Gangster State by Peter Louis Myberg, about the state capture in South Africa with the Guptas and so forth. So the pillaging that we're seeing here has taken place in South Africa. I'm just frightened and concerned and angry that we'll wake up one day and find that our kids have very little to inherit because we've allowed thieves to pillage as they want. Then the other book that I'm going to recommend is Winners Take All, The Elite Charade of Changing the World. This is the people that get rich through, honest means, but through prices and things of that sort, and they pile up wealth, and then they stand up one day and say, we're donating what we got. But, couldn't you have done this by charging fairer prices for the products that you produce? It's a very interesting and thought-provoking book. So those are the books that I recommend. What books have you read that you love to recommend to our book-loving audience out there?
So I listed 3. The first one was The Cross and the Switchblade by David Wilkerson.
Okay.
And it's an old book, and it's the story of how David Wilkerson, who was a pastor in Kansas, I think, felt called to go into New York. And this was probably in the late 60s, early 70s, when New York was just an absolute nightmare of crime and gangs. And his God-given task was to preach to the gangs. And he converted a notorious gang leader, a guy by the name of Nicky Cruz. He didn't convert, he presented the Bible, and Nicky Cruz became a Christian. And I read that book when I was a teenager, and it was a huge influence on my life. And I became a Christian then, and my faith, has been everything to me.
That's good to hear. Your second book?
Second one is The Long Walk by Slavomir Raviks. And it's a story of, at the end of World War II, Russia took over Poland, and the threat to them were the officer class. And so all the Polish officers were arrested and were sent to Siberia. So they were trucked out, they were all arrested, trucked out. When the train line ended, they had to walk through the Siberian snows, and eventually they got to a forest and were told, cut this down, you make your prison camp here. Wow. And they were held there. And one of them, there were 5 guys who escaped. And it's the story of their walk from Siberia around Lake Baikal into Mongolia and then down into northern India. And eventually they got into, they linked up with British forces in India. It was so extreme that when they got there, they were hospitalized. And the doctors said to them, you're fine now, but shortly you're going to go into basically a mental state of breakdown because you're now safe.
Wow.
And all of them had to be sedated for about 2 weeks.
That's a story of resilience.
Hell of a story.
Your third book?
And then the third book is Born to Run by Chris McIntosh. And I've always loved running. And it's the story of barefoot running. And it's really the story of all of us and the stamina that is in all of us. And he tells the story of the Tarahumara Indians, a tribe in northern Mexico. And running has always been a part of their spiritual philosophy. And they live in the hardest, hottest, toughest place. And they just they just run.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those books that you've chosen in a way encapsulate the person that you are. Fascinating. I'm fascinated by the choice of books. Larry.
From them, can I just pay one more tribute?
Sure. Absolutely.
And I would just like to pay a final tribute to my late and much loved friends, Roy and Heather Bennett, and the lives that they lived and gave for this country.
Larry, thank you so much for your courage, for your love for this country, for your fight, noble fight to protect the Victoria Falls.
Yeah.
And I pray that you win and that more people join you in that fight.
And Trevor, I must just thank you for the life that you've lived, you and your wife and your family, what it's cost and what you've given to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Allow me now to turn to our viewers who are all over the world to say thank you for watching. And I can't end without sharing with you just how hurt I am, how angry I am over the continued imprisonment of my friend, my colleague, and in many respects, my son, Blessed Mhlanga. Blessed does not deserve to be in prison, not one extra second. He shouldn't be there. It pains me deeply that he continues incarcerated. It pains me deeply that the people that have put Blessed in there know he's not done anything wrong. It pains me deeply that this is but one example of abuse of power that by those who think they have power and that can imprison whomsoever they wish. That breaks my heart. That breaks my heart. Thank you for watching. We are on 11.4 million views right now and growing, 86,000 subscribers globally. We're grateful for your support. Remember, we are a weekly show. Go below this video, subscribe, like, and share as much as possible. We see your comments. We read them, keep them coming. Thank you for your support. Remember, we've gone a step further, by the way. We created a platform where all our content sits, your podcasts. We are on Twitter. We are on TikTok. Very big on Instagram. Thank you for your support. We appreciate it. Until next time, cheers to you all.